All right, we welcome you back to a Wednesday edition of On Cue. Rich Quinones here, as I mentioned. Don't forget to get social with me. Very easy to do. XIG at Rich Quinones. The YouTube channel subs have gone up. We appreciate that. And of course, you guys checking out the channel, loyalty and the like and the comments and the support. We love it. Also on TikTok, Rich Q on the mic is on this Wednesday. We welcome in the man that the listening and viewing audience knows not only does he give you some great savings and great insight, but you also get a little discount when he chimes in and talk a little college football from all three sports. Nick Costco at Nick Costco 59. What's going on, my friend?
I'm good, Rich. I saved you some money last week because we pushed the entire week last week.
Yeah,
2-1, so better than week one. That disastrous week one of college football. But week two, kind of back on the good side of things. But hopefully, we'll turn that into some net gains here in
that's
week three.
that's what we want to do. So we'll flash up the picks and the plays, and we'll rip through them. You got Clemson at GT, Georgia, Tennessee, USF hot at Miami, Texas A&M at Notre Dame, Florida at LSU. So with that, we'll start with Clemson laying 3.5 at Georgia Tech. I mean, look, they lose to LSU. They get the ugly win against Troy. You don't get style points for wins in any league. Georgia Tech got the win over your Colorado Buffaloes to open up the season. Then they turn around and what was it? Poor little not Gardner Minshew, Gardner Webb. They put up 59. A little different animal here in Clemson. So initial thoughts on this one.
It's interesting because I think Georgia Tech they're getting a lot of juice for this one. I know as far as the betting lines from BetMGM are concerned, Clemson's a road favorite, probably rightfully so. I think that's where the money's going to go. So naturally, when you look at Clemson, they lost LSU. Now they didn't play too well last week against Troy. I believe they're actually losing before that lightning delay. Had to kind of get a little bit of a second half comeback in that one. But this is going to be a pretty good game. I do like Clemson to kind of bounce back here. And now some of my colleagues on three might disagree and say like, well, Georgia Tech might have something cooking right here, and the fact that they're at home dog probably bodes well for the Yellow Jackets, but just I had to listen to pretty much a 10-minute rant from Dabo Sweeney today when I was writing up some stories here today. So Dabo kind of explained the way he explained the struggles of this team. He compared it to 2016, the year they won the national championship over Alabama, that 35-31 game. I believe that was the year Deshaun Watson beat Jalen Hurts, a freshman Jalen Hurts head-to-head, if memory serves correct. And that year, they got off to like an 8-0, 9-0 start. They lost to Pitt mid-season, and then it almost knocked them out of the playoffs because it was a stunning loss at the time of the 14 playoff. But he compared the offensive struggles where it's like he wants his team to kind of go back to that mantra of and this is like channeling his inner Nick Saban, which is don't listen to all that media junk it's all rat poison. The you suck poison is what he kind of called it today. So I believe, or it was at his presser yesterday or Monday. So just reading that, and then I'm like, you know what? Through you played what looks like an elite defense so far in LSU, then you kind of stub your toe a little bit against Troy, which ironically, if you go back to that 2016 season, they played Troy week two, higher scoring, but they only
Yeah.
won 30-24. They
Yeah.
routinely struggle with that team a little bit. So I don't read too much into it other than the fact that I think this team, as I said to you weeks ago, that this team is still really, really good. I'm very high on them this year. I believe I had them in the semifinals this year, making a run. So I'm more on the Clemson train. I don't want to get off yet. So 3.5, not too big of a line. So I'll ride with the Tigers here on the road and get a big ACC win.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I don't even think this game's. I mean, they're laying 3.5. The total is 53.5. I don't think the game's going to be as close as people anticipated. I think Clemson's going to win this game by at least 10-13 going away. What do we got here? Second game, you got Georgia, number 6, Georgia 2-0 against number 15 Tennessee, which is also 2-0. Tennessee getting 3.5. So again, you look at some of these early lines. Actually, Georgia laying the 3.5, Tennessee getting the 3.5. So I'm correct. These the hook and lateral, so to speak. A little hook, a little juice. 3.5. Might close at 4. Total is 49.5. Nice little early season matchup right here between two top ranked teams. Obviously, two teams that are 2-0 and two teams in the SEC. I expect this. We know about Georgia's defense, but I think this could be a little bit of a shootout.
Yeah, I think so too, because I think what we've seen so far from Georgia's offense is that Gunnar Stockton can at least play, right? I think that was everybody's big worry coming into the season. So He's shown off some dual threat ability for the Bulldogs, so it gives him a little bit more of a dynamic on offense. And of course, Zachariah Branch is the guy to watch for at wide receiver for Georgia. But I think people are more surprised about Tennessee right now. I think we always expected Georgia to be on that borderline elite tier once
Sure.
again, to try to compete for the SEC, make the college football playoffs, just because that's just the way that program has operated under Kirby Smart. But the fact that Tennessee is a home dog right now, they vaulted up the polls up to 15th this week in the AP poll. Now, granted, they played East Tennessee State last week and put up 72.
Yep.
It's the same conversation with Alabama. It's like, oh, they bounced back. Well, I know they put up 73 points,
And
which is
45 against Syracuse.
right. It is very impressive, but they beat Louisiana Monroe.
Yep.
As far as
Yep.
Tennessee is concerned, they beat, East Tennessee State. But as you alluded to right there, they did beat Syracuse in week one with that 45-26 win. And Joey Aguilar looks pretty good. And I think if you use if you compare and contrast right now with their quarterback situations compared to last year, Nico's over there at UCLA right now. He has struggled. The UCLA offense has struggled to find any rhythm. Joey Aguilar has been a seamless transition and basically a transfer trade, if we want to call that. So I love Tennessee's offense right now. The fact that they're at home in this game. If they were in Athens, Q, I'd probably lean towards Georgia, but I don't know. I have a funny feeling about Tennessee this week, and I think Georgia, while I think they could still compete for the SEC and make the college football playoff, this game right now, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I feel like this is a big game that Tennessee is going to win, get themselves into the top 10 of the AP poll next week. And I think this will be the week where we start saying, all right, the Vols maybe are a playoff contender once again, when this was thought to be not necessarily a rebuilding year, but almost a retooling year where it's like, okay, maybe they'll reload for 2026. So I like the home dogs here. I'll take the plus 3.5 here with Tennessee.
All right, Costco's picks again. Nick's picks on this edition of On Cue. We're about 15 minutes past 4 o'clock hour. Don't forget, we are brought to you by Fresh Roasted Coffee. Use the promo code BYP20. Save now on your first order. Check that out in the show notes. Game number 3. Here we go. Right, you got number 18 USF against number 5 Miami. Now, even
Mhm,
though look, get on that train. Right, can you make it 3 straight upset wins to
mhm,
start the season? I think if you beat Miami, how do you not put them in the top 10 or just outside of
mhm.
it? I mean, look, plus 17 and a half kind of tells you where some people might be laying the hat. Let me ask you this first and foremost. What's been the contributing factor thus far for 2 successful games to start the season, 2 wins to start the season for USF in your mind?
I really think it's that impact of Alex Golish. Now, he was a interesting hire the other year. This is year 3 now for him at USF, and he came from Tennessee. He was Josh Heupel's offensive coordinator this year. Just like, okay, what do you have in store right here for USF? Now you're going from the SEC to the American Athletic Conference and a team that was essentially denied a bid to the Big 12. I believe it was like them and Memphis was the big one that kind of got denied entry to the Big 12 when they were adding teams amid all the conference realignment over the past couple of years. And so these are still the group of 5. I guess they call them group of 6 teams
Mhm.
now, as far as those conferences are concerned. So Golich has done a great job, read a great story by Ross Dellinger, who does contribute with us over at On3 Sports. Of course, everyone knows him for his Yahoo Sports contributions, but he wrote a great column today about the rise of Alex Golich and how he's rebuilt this program pretty much from the ground up. I mean, he went as far as to like, these players were parking for practice, around campus, getting into the facility, getting into the stadium, and these guys are getting parking tickets. So, like, you're talking about a guy who has rebuilt from the most minute things to now they have their own facility. NIL money is pouring in. Obviously, they have been paid out by these big schools. They were paid out by Florida, obviously, last
Yep,
week
yep.
to go to Gainesville and actually upset the Gators. And you saw the reaction. I don't know if you saw that viral video. We wrote about it. There was a video caught in the coach's press box area where they're coming back down through the elevators. They're coming down to the hallway, hitting the elevators after the game. All the USF coaches are jumping. They're raving. The
Yeah, they're
Florida
getting
coaches
fired up.
they're just heads down, and it's ridiculous. So I think it starts at the top with Alex Golich. He's done a great job with that program. I can't pick him outright to win this game at Miami. And again, they're not traveling far. Again,
A
it's
lot of
another
points though,
undefeated.
though.
Yeah, it's a lot of points. That's why that one was kind of a little eye opening to me. Now I get it that Miami's got Carson Beck. The offense is rolling right now. The defense, basically Miami seems to be in sync compared to last year, where you had Cam Ward and you had a ridiculous offense. Obviously, it led to him being the number 1 overall pick, but it seems like this team is a little bit more in sync this year. I like that for Miami, but that is a huge line right there. It's a 3-score game. I don't think it's going to be that big of a blowout. I think USF can keep it close. Byron Brown, very good quarterback for USF. He showed off his dual threat abilities. I know it was a low scoring game against Florida. They struggled a little bit with the Gators defense, but hey, the guy was 23 of 36, threw the ball a lot, didn't turn the ball over, ran for 66 yards as well. And the fact that South Florida's defense held Florida and DJ Lagway to, essentially just 16
Got
points. I
him
think
in
it was only
check.
one touchdown. Jaden Ball didn't top 100 yards last week, and that was on the road. So I think this team is just not afraid of the moment at this point. Now, it's just not to get too far off track here, but as far as where this program goes in the future, when it comes to future realignment, where the Big 12 maybe takes a second look at USF, or maybe the Big 10 expands their footprint even further down south, or the ACC's like, hey, we want you now. Like I feel like USF among some other Group of 5, Group of 6 schools is now with a win like that last week, and if they can somehow pull off the upset here, and they're going to
Sure.
roll into the top 10 and be, if you remember back in
100% they would.
'07, USF was number 2 in the country at one point. So, of course, my Scarlet Knights knocked them off at home, so I got to sneak that one in there. But this it is interesting how like they're almost setting themselves up for, hey, we can be a very attractive option in a year or two when inevitably we see the SEC, the Big 10, ACC, Big 12, one of the Power Fours is going to inevitably add another team here, and try to expand further to just establish more of a dominant footprint where we see more of the separation in college football. So everything's coming up USF right now. I don't think they're going to win this game outright, but I find it hard to believe that this was a fluke over the last 2 weeks where they're kind of taking the world by storm. I think they're in a really good spot coming off back-to-back 7-win seasons. I like USF in this game to cover that 17 and a half. I think Miami will win this one, but I think USF is going to give them a lot of fits on Saturday.
Well, couple things, right? I mean, think about all the universities you got down there, right? Florida,
Yeah.
Florida State, Florida Atlantic, Miami, USF. So now all of a sudden you
Central
get a win
Florida,
like
you're another
this.
yeah, Big 12. Yeah.
Yeah, you get a win like this, now all of a sudden, you're talking about maybe, kinda tapping into that NIL pot, right, with
Mhm.
some of these transfers, and also too, look, Miami beats Notre Dame, they gutted it out
Mhm.
27-24. What are you gonna hang your hat on, a 42-point win over Bethune, right? So it's like, okay, who had the more impressive start to the season? Well, obviously, it's gotta be South Florida, it's gotta be
Mhm.
USF because they beat
Yeah.
Boise State and then they beat Florida. So the line to me, to like Vince's point, the line should at least be 7, maybe 9.
Yeah.
17 and a half is way too much. I'm gonna grab maybe I'm just gonna jump on them. I'm a Miami guy. I'm gonna grab USF though with the points.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you mentioned that Boise State win the previous week, the end of August, 34-7 right there. And usually Boise State is everybody's group of 5 darling every year in the playoff. And now it's like, all right, who's the top group of 5 team right now? Is it Memphis? Is it USF? Tulane. I know Tulane's is the other popular pick right now, pretty much between South Florida and Tulane right now. So it's like, hey, if you get an eye-opening win within the group of 5 like that over Boise State that just made the college football playoff last year, and then you go out and upset Florida. And again, Florida could end up being a dumpster fire for all we know. But the fact that you go into the swamp and get that win, especially where you see Florida kind of, vomiting all over themselves, or, spitting all over themselves, if the case may be, and winning that game with more disciplined football on the road in a tough SEC environment, you got something cooking right now. So, and it is amazing looking ahead of the schedule for USF. They have Miami this week, but I mean, Q, if they somehow pull off this upset, they're 3-0. I mean, it is very, very realistic to see this team going 12-0, and all of a sudden you're talking about a top 5 team in the country only because of these early wins. And if they just keep
Mhm.
winning, if you're undefeated and you have a top 5 win, even if it's the third game of the season, it's going to be very, very hard to say this team is not a top 10, top 5 team in the country, because the rest of the way, I know it's not a world beater of a schedule, but you do have to go to Memphis, as I mentioned before, and they do have to go to Navy, which is going to be another difficult game, because then Navy is going to give you a tough run. But I mean, if they run the table here, Q, and they're in the running here for the American Athletic Conference Championship, and all of a sudden they're the Group of 5 representative of the playoff, I mean, they could have a decently high seed. So it's a long, far projection
Right.
from now, but the fact that this could set up for a very, very special season, win or loss this weekend, as long as they keep it close.
Yeah, and it's a good point you bring up because they got the meat and potatoes, the hard part out of the schedule. They're getting rid of it after Miami. You
Yeah.
mentioned South Carolina State. You throw in North Texas, FAU, Navy, UAB, Rice to close out the season. So be very interesting. But I am definitely grabbing the hot team with the points. You got the Aggies 2-0, Irish 0-1. Texas A&M is the 16th ranked team. Again, plus 6.5. Listen, we know they can score 40 plus points in the first two
Mhm.
games. You talk about that Notre Dame squad, right? They had the losses to start the season against Miami. They get beat late by Miami, right? First win over a top 10 team in 8 years. I think they need to do a better job against the run. And you look at Texas A&M, and I get it. It's who they played to open up the season, but they're averaging about a buck 55 on the ground.
Yeah, this one's gonna be very interesting. I think just when you look at what Notre Dame did the first week, arguably should have won that game in a comeback there. Maybe they just got it going too late. I just feel like that's going to be what you see for Notre Dame this year. These close, gutted out type of wins, where
Mm,
they run the table now and go 11-1 and are a top five seed in the playoffs, or they finish 10-2. Maybe they lose this game and all of a sudden they win 10 in a row for all we know. So um, I can't pick Texas A&M to win it. So if I gave you a money line pick, I'd probably pick Notre Dame at home here. But because of that 6.5, I just think Notre Dame's going to play a lot more close games this year until they play teams that are not as good and not as good as and talented as them. So I do like Texas A&M in this one. The health of Marcel Reed, their quarterback, is something to monitor. It seems like he's all good to go, but the fact that you see a Texas A&M team put up 42 and 44 points over the last couple of weeks. I mean, they could score in bunches. I think Notre Dame's going to slow them down a little bit and eventually, grind it out and win this game. But I think Texas A&M just scores too much to make this a blowout per se. So you might see another field goal game. So for right now, and I know it's on the road in South Bend, but I do like Texas A&M here plus 6.5.
yeah, I like the kid Reed too, right?
Yeah.
Because he can beat you with his arm. And, he's a quarterback that can run around a little bit, very athletic. Florida versus LSU to wrap things up. I've seen that line kind of maneuver itself from 6, 6.5,
Mm.
7, 7.5. I don't know what you guys or what you're thinking about grabbing it at. Um, I'll try to pull up Kern right now, but I'm seeing 7.5 at MGM. So that's third ranked Florida. I'm sorry, third ranked LSU.
Mm.
They're hosting Florida in this one. You know, with my look but don't touch. This is my look but don't touch game.
Yeah, I don't blame him because it is a rivalry game, and don't forget, Florida did just win this game last year when everyone thought that they were just going to fold under pressure, and now this starts that long run of a really, really brutal schedule for Florida, and starts right here with LSU. Just I don't know. I want to be a believer in Florida. I have a soft spot for the Gators. They're dating back to my childhood, but with what we have in front of us right now, 20-20 under Billy Napier, 1-1 this year. This pretty much is what they are. They're a middling 500, maybe close to an above average team year to year, and I don't think it's going to get any better right now. I could be desperate. I could be completely wrong by the time we get through Saturday night, but I just don't see this getting any better. Maybe they'll pick off one of these next four teams, Cube, because they have number 3 LSU on the road. They're at number 5 Miami. They have to host Texas, and then they have to go to Texas A&M. Could they win one of these games? Maybe even two. Sure, but let's just say they go 2-2 over the next 4 games. What are they? They're 3-3 with 2
Yep,
ranked wins, 2 ranked losses, and oh yeah, you have a Mississippi State that might have a little bit more juice than last year, and then you play Georgia. So go figure. The schedule is absolutely brutal for the Gators. Garrett Nussmeier, I think this is the game where he finally breaks out during his final year. I know he broke out last year and he's been a
right.
popular preseason Heisman pick. He could be the top quarterback taken for all we know in next year's draft. But I just feel like in Death Valley, this is the game that LSU needs, and I think will put it all together after the first 2 games where they won not necessarily ugly over Clemson. They played well defensively, but the offense wasn't as explosive. And of course, last week against I believe it was Louisiana Tech, it wasn't great. It was okay. I think this is the game where big stage Saturday Night Lights or over there in Death Valley. I just think LSU is going to be too good. That defense is way too good, by the way. If Florida struggled with, and again, I know we just praised them, but nothing against South Florida. But if Florida struggled against the South Florida Bulls last week, I don't know what LSU's defense is going to do to them on Saturday night. So give me LSU, give me the points. I'll take the 7.5, and I think they're going to run away with this one in the end.
That's the reason we have them on every week. That bundle, that savings of insight. Scotty Boy chimes in. Costco after Kansas blew lead to Missouri. Does it look like their chances of a bowl game are possibly in trouble early? And they started 2-0, then they lost that game 42-31. They got West Virginia coming up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm looking at their schedule as well. You got back-to-back home games. West Virginia, since I mean, West Virginia is rebuilding completely right now. So I would say if they can get that one, or 3-1 through the first third of the season, they're probably sitting pretty. Cincinnati can go either way at UCF. I mean, who knows? What again, this is the second iteration of Scott Frost. I'm looking at over those next 3 games. Q, you're probably good for 2 wins right there. So if you're 4-2 halfway through the season, I know Texas Tech is going to be a little bit of a tough game in Lubbock, and Kansas State. Who knows with that team right now? I mean, they just lost to Iowa State. Everyone's like, okay, Maybe they'll bounce back the next week. Then Army beats them. Kansas State looks like they're in shambles right now through 2 games. That could change, by the time we get to late October. But I'd still lean on Kansas finding a way to 4 more wins over the course of the next 9 games. And off the top of my head, I know. I mean, as far as the ranked teams right now, you look at Texas Tech, Iowa State, Utah, tough games right there. But over the next 3 weeks, I think they could be sitting pretty right now with wins over West Virginia, Cincinnati, or UCF. Maybe just pick 2 out of those 3, and then I mean, if you're 4-2, I think you're sitting pretty for the second half of the season.
I did wanted to ask you real quick before I let you get out of here. It's interesting too, right? Because Belichick, they get the win over
Mhm.
Charlotte 20-3. Kind of weird. I'm reading these articles and they're saying his winning percentage was 333 in the NFL. And I'm like, yeah, you might want to fact check. It was like right around 647. But be that as it may, the whole Patriots want nothing to do with Belichick. Hey, don't
Mhm.
even think about bringing scouts down here. Belichick and UNC wants nothing to do with the Patriots. I mean, is this kind of petty? Is this turnabout as fair play? I mean, is this comically ridiculous? What is this?
I think it's a combination of petty and comically ridiculous. I think it's still just beef that Belichick has with the organization. Probably with Robert Kraft, that's pretty much all it boils down to. I'm pretty sure Mike Vrabel said yesterday or Monday, he's like, "Yeah, I heard that. I am not aware of that. They're welcome here. As far as I know, I'd love to sit in." I think he said it along the line. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but I think he said, UNC's welcome here, and like I would love to go down to Chapel Hill to scout his players or something along those lines. So I think it's just pettiness from Bill Belichick if that's really the case. I don't know if he's trying to send a message to Robert Kraft continually, even though he's in college football right now, especially if he does go back to the NFL at some point. So a little ridiculous if you ask me. I just think if you're Bill Belichick, I don't know, man. I feel like we just got over the all the PR nightmares and disasters of his girlfriend, Jordan Hudson, over the course of the summer. Now, again, the PR nightmare was that they got blown out by TCU in the first week, but they got their first win over Charlotte. Again, not a pretty win. Charlotte's not a world beater of a program right now when it comes to a comparison to a Power Four program right now. Nothing against them, but I mean, you win that one not so convincingly. I mean, yeah, 20-3, fine. Shut them out in the second half. Okay, all well and good. Got your first win, monkey off your back, move on. The schedule still sets up for, as I said earlier, I didn't think they would get blown out by TCU, but
Right.
the schedule still sets up for perhaps 5 or 6 wins, and all of a sudden you're bowling at the end of your first season. So that's what it should be the focus on: the offense, the defense, special teams, whatever the case may be. I mean, they have Richmond this week. You would think that's a win too, and I think that's all that should be focused on. Get the wins where you can before you play the likes of Clemson later in the year. You have to go cross country to go play Cal for an ACC game, which is absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, you host Stanford, so you save yourself a California trip. But yeah, I would chalk it up to just pettiness, ridiculousness. I don't know what's true. If he says he's banned from the Patriots or wherever the case may be, and they're not, and then he's going to turn around and say, "All right, I don't want my guys getting scouted by the Patriots." If that actually is true, kind of ridiculous. You're basically not allowing one of 32 franchises to take a look. Maybe the Patriots would be the only team to want any of your players in the NFL come next season. So I don't get it. I think it's ridiculous. Hopefully it just goes away and it's not one of those stories we have to keep worrying about the next couple of weeks. Just from a media coverage standpoint, I'd rather talk about if he actually is getting this thing right or it's going to be a disaster rather than his pettiness and his beef with his old organization.
Quarterback situation in Colorado. Where do you think Coach Prime is going to go in that one? Vince wants to know.
Seems like it's gonna be Ryan Staub. I mean, I should, Ryan Staub, also known as Martin Luther Staub, as Coach Prime said last week after after they beat Delaware, which is
He's been taking most of the reps, most of the
right.
snaps.
And it was interesting too, because I wrote about this yesterday. It was funny because we wrote the report that okay, it's going to be Staub this week, and then Dion came out not maybe about 2 hours later, and he was like, I don't know where that came from. We're in a rush to do everything." Obviously, he's not singling out me because I don't have that much of inside information to Colorado's program, but he was like, "I don't know where that came from." And it's like we jumped the gun on things, and then he later conceded that Staub is taking the majority of the first team reps this week. So they used 3 quarterbacks last week. I think Julian Lewis, I think maybe they're gonna end up preserving his eligibility. He's now appeared in 2 games. He can appear in 2 more. I believe he appeared in the first game, if memory serves correct. But I think they're going to end up preserving his eligibility. So if they start using multiple quarterbacks throughout the course of the rest of the year, it's probably just going to be Staub and the transfer Kadon Salter, who has looked good in spots. And I
Mhm.
think The stat line's a little deceiving last week. I think that's what Dion would tell you. The completion percentage was there, and he ran a little bit, pretty well against Delaware. But the offense seemed to operate more efficiently when Ryan Staub was pulling the trigger behind center, under center. So it seems like it's going to be him. All reports indicate it's going to be him. I don't know what their deal is going to be in a couple weeks if they have to keep shifting quarterbacks. Maybe it's intentional. I know Dion says everything he does with the quarterback position is intentional. It seems like Staub gives him the best chance, quote unquote, right now to give him a chance to win. If he plays well on Friday night against Houston, I think they're going to stick with him. As long as they win and he plays well,
Right.
there's no reason to mess with that mojo. Because they do have Wyoming after that, should be a winnable game at home. Then you host BYU. Don't know what we're going to get out of them this year by comparison to last year. So this is the time where you stack up wins. You're 1-1 right now. If you can knock off Houston on the road, take out Wyoming, and maybe you pick off one of BYU or TCU before you host Iowa State, probably, most likely a top 15 Iowa State team by the time we get to mid-October. Over the next 4 games, you get 2 or 3 wins. I mean, you're looking good if you're Coach Prime and the Buffaloes, and then hopefully for them they can stick to one quarterback. Otherwise, I mean, we could see Staub, we could see Salter. I just hope they don't end up burning Julian Lewis's eligibility
No,
for
the
no reason.
blue chip
Yeah,
freshman
if Julian Lewis, the star freshman, if he gets his eligibility burnt, I would hope he is the starter,
going
even
forward.
even yeah, going forward, even if it's like the last 4 games of the season,
Yep.
make that count if you think he gives you the best chance to win, to even ultimately get to a bowl game as well.
Yeah, Staub, 7 of 10, buck 57, 2
Mhm.
touchdowns against the Hens last weekend. I would
FBS
like
is
to ask.
10, by the way. Back in our day, Q, the Delaware was a FCS or
That's right.
1 AA program, so good
Sure.
on them for moving up a level.
Yeah.